What would you do if your German Shepherd led you to a woman freezing to death on a bridge, and her first words were, "You can't save me. They killed my dogs and now they'll kill you too"? That's exactly what happened to Navy SEAL veteran Axel Thompson when Rangers' supernatural detection abilities uncovered not just a prosecutor left to die in a Montana blizzard, but 3 German Shepherd puppies whose mother had been murdered to silence a witness and whose own lives were now in deadly danger. But what Assistant District Attorney Sarah Williams didn't know was that her 3 orphaned puppies had followed her scent trail through the storm, leading them directly to a Navy SEAL whose family specialized in protecting both human and canine lives, and whose German Shepherd partner was about to prove that some bonds transcend species and strengthen under fire. This is the true story of a frozen bridge that became a battlefield, a prosecutor who refused to die quietly, and the moment when "they're coming for the puppies next" became the words that would either save a family or cost everyone their lives. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments. And if you believe that protecting innocent lives, whether human or canine, is worth risking everything, hit that like button. You're going to need every bit of courage you have for this one. Now let's begin. The emergency call that would change everything came through Rangers' supernatural detection abilities rather than official channels, pulling Axel Thompson from his supply run during Montana's worst blizzard in 50 years. Ranger, the tactical specialist of the Midnight Brotherhood whose abilities exceeded military working dog standards, had been restless all morning, showing the alert behavior that meant he'd detected something beyond normal weather emergency. "What is it, boy?" Axel asked, his thick, dark beard crusted with ice and his weathered military features focusing on his partner's urgent signals. "You're picking up something unusual." Rangers' behavior intensified as they approached Miller Creek Bridge, the only route connecting North Valley communities during winter conditions. His supernatural hearing and scent detection were identifying something that shouldn't have been possible in blizzard conditions: multiple distress signals from different sources. Following Rangers' guidance through snowdrifts that reached waist-deep, Axel discovered what appeared to be clothing abandoned near the bridge's center support structure. But Rangers' alert pattern indicated this wasn't abandoned. This was someone in critical condition. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Axel called while Ranger began emergency warming procedures, positioning his body to block wind and provide thermal protection. Under a thin layer of snow that would have been fatal within the hour, they found Assistant District Attorney Sarah Williams, 34 years old, hypothermic and showing severe exposure symptoms, but conscious enough to speak. Don't try to save me," Sarah whispered through violent shivering. "They killed my dogs. They'll kill yours too." Axel's military training immediately recognized this wasn't accidental exposure, but it was what Sarah said next that transformed this from a rescue operation into something far more dangerous. "My 3 German Shepherd puppies, Luna, Star, and Hope. They shot their mother yesterday to send me a message. The puppies escaped, but they're only 12 weeks old. They won't survive the storm looking for me." Ranger's alert behavior intensified, and Axel realized his partner was detecting additional canine scents despite the blizzard conditions, scents that were fresh and moving closer. "Sarah, where would your puppies go if they were looking for you?" "They know the route from my house to the courthouse. If they're following my scent trail..." Sarah's eyes widened with terror. "They'll follow it here, and Sheriff Morrison's team is coming to confirm my death and eliminate any witnesses." That's when Axel heard it, the distant sounds of puppy distress calls barely audible over the wind, coming from the forest approach to the bridge. Ranger immediately oriented toward the sounds and made the tactical decision that would define the entire rescue operation. The German Shepherd began coordinating between protecting Sarah and guiding the approaching puppies to safety, a dual mission that required abilities no standard working dog possessed. "Mr. Thompson," Sarah said, gripping Axel's arm with desperate strength, "I'm the lead prosecutor on a human trafficking case. 3 witnesses have died in accidents over 4 months. They killed my dog Lady yesterday as a warning, then left me here to freeze when I wouldn't drop the case." "What about the evidence?" "Safe deposit boxes at 3 different banks, but the corruption goes all the way to federal level. Sheriff Morrison, Federal Marshal Rodriguez, Judge Harrison. They control local law enforcement and have federal resources." As if to confirm her words, Ranger alerted to approaching vehicles. Multiple engines moving through conditions that should have made travel impossible unless they knew exactly when and where to arrive. But it was what emerged from the forest that changed everything about the tactical situation. 3 German Shepherd puppies, 12 weeks old, hypothermic and terrified but alive, stumbled through the deep snow towards Sarah's voice. Their dead mother had trained them well enough that they had followed Sarah's scent trail through a blizzard that would have killed adult dogs. Luna, the largest puppy, immediately recognized Ranger as pack family and began making distress sounds that clearly communicated their mother's death and their search for Sarah. Star and Hope, despite their critical condition, positioned themselves protectively around Sarah while making sounds that Ranger translated into tactical intelligence about the approaching vehicles. "My God," Sarah whispered, seeing her 3 puppies alive despite everything the corruption network had done to destroy her family. "They followed me through the storm." But Axel was focused on Ranger's warning signals about the multiple vehicles approaching through conditions that confirmed this wasn't a rescue operation. It was a termination mission designed to eliminate Sarah, her evidence, and anyone who might have discovered her alive. "Sarah," Axel said, watching Luna, Star, and Hope work with Ranger to provide thermal protection while serving as early warning systems. "These puppies just saved your life by leading me to you. Now, we're all going to save each other." The sound of snowplows confirmed that Sheriff Morrison's team was minutes away from reaching the bridge with enough firepower to eliminate all witnesses, human and canine. But they hadn't counted on facing a Navy SEAL, a tactically superior German Shepherd, and 3 puppies whose mother had died protecting evidence that could bring down the largest corruption network in Montana history. The frozen bridge was about to become a battlefield between justice and corruption, with a family of dogs whose loyalty transcended death and whose courage would either expose the truth or die protecting it. As Sheriff Morrison's vehicles approached through the blizzard, something extraordinary happened that would redefine what Axel Thompson thought he knew about canine intelligence and family loyalty. Luna, Star, and Hope, 3 12-week-old German Shepherd puppies who should have been helpless in these conditions, began coordinating with Ranger in tactical formations that exceeded their age and training. "Mr. Thompson," Sarah whispered while Ranger and the 3 puppies formed a protective circle around her, "these puppies have been with me during every threatening phone call, every intimidation attempt, every accident that happened to witnesses. They've learned to recognize danger." Luna, the largest puppy, positioned herself between Sarah and the approaching vehicle sounds while making soft alert calls that Ranger immediately understood and responded to with coordinated positioning. Star and Hope took flanking positions that provided early warning coverage while using their small bodies to help maintain Sarah's critical body temperature, behavior that demonstrated intelligence far beyond normal puppy development. "They're not just scared puppies looking for their mother," Axel realized, watching the coordinated protective behavior. "They're ladies' trained offspring who've inherited her protective instincts and tactical awareness." But it was what Ranger discovered through his supernatural detection abilities that revealed the true scope of the threat they were facing. 8 vehicles approaching, approximately 24 armed personnel, military-grade equipment, Axel interpreted from Ranger's behavior patterns. "This isn't law enforcement. This is a private army." Sarah gripped Axel's arm with strength that defied her hypothermic condition. "They've killed 3 witnesses over 4 months. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, who documented injuries on trafficking victims, car accident. Maria Santos, who escaped and was willing to testify, hunting accident. Tom Mitchell, who handled financial records, equipment failure at his construction site." "What about your evidence?" 3 safe deposit boxes containing recorded conversations between Sheriff Morrison and Judge Harrison discussing victim transport schedules, financial records showing $47 million laundered through courthouse accounts, and photographs proving Federal Marshal Rodriguez's coordination with trafficking operations. But it was what the 3 puppies did next that provided the intelligence breakthrough that would save all their lives. Luna began making specific sound patterns that Ranger translated into detailed information about the approaching vehicles, number of occupants, weapon signatures, and most importantly, communication frequencies they were using. These puppies spent 12 weeks listening to their mother detect threats against Sarah, Axel understood. They've learned to identify the same danger patterns Lady was trained to recognize. Star and Hope had positioned themselves where they could monitor different approach routes while maintaining thermal contact with Sarah, creating an intelligence network that exceeded anything Axel had seen from adult military working dogs. Working together, Ranger and the 3 puppies began providing real-time tactical intelligence that allowed Axel to intercept Sheriff Morrison's communications and understand the true scope of the elimination mission. "Base Command, this is Sheriff Morrison," came the transmission that Luna's enhanced hearing had detected. "Weather provides perfect cover for permanent cleanup. No survivors, no evidence, no federal investigation." "Understood. Federal Marshal Rodriguez has classified this as counterterrorism operation with authorization for lethal force. Private contractors are standing by for evidence destruction." But it was the response from the private military contractors that revealed why Sarah's assassination had required such overwhelming resources. "Sheriff Morrison, Target has evidence that could expose trafficking network across 7 states. We have authorization to eliminate all witnesses and destroy any vehicles, equipment, or animals that might preserve evidence." Sarah looked at Luna, Star, and Hope with tears that had nothing to do with hypothermia. "They're going to kill the puppies because they think they might be trained to find evidence." "Not while I'm here," Axel replied, watching Ranger coordinate with the 3 puppies in protective formations that combined their inherited abilities with his military training. What followed was the most sophisticated counter-surveillance operation ever conducted by hypothermic prosecutor, a Navy SEAL, and 4 German Shepherds during a Montana blizzard. Ranger began teaching Luna, Star, and Hope advanced tactical techniques that built on their inherited protective instincts, creating a coordinated defense network that used the puppy's small size and enhanced hearing against the approaching private army. Luna, perimeter alert. Star, communication monitoring. Hope, thermal protection for Sarah. Axel found himself coordinating with dogs whose abilities exceeded their age by years and whose loyalty exceeded anything corruption could understand. The 3 puppies responded with precision that would have impressed military working dog handlers, but more importantly, they demonstrated the emotional intelligence that had made their mother legendary in law enforcement circles. When Sarah's hypothermia worsened, Hope immediately increased thermal contact while making sounds that guided Ranger to provide additional warming procedures. When the approaching vehicles changed tactics, Luna modified her alert patterns to provide updated intelligence, while Star monitored for additional threats. But it was what happened when the first sheriff's vehicle stopped 200 yards from the bridge that proved these puppies had inherited more than just their mother's protective instincts. "Base Command, no body located at target site," came Deputy Chen's transmission. "Snow patterns suggest possible movement. Initiating expanded search protocol." Luna made a sound that Ranger immediately understood and responded to by coordinating a deception operation, using their combined scent trails to create false evidence that would mislead the search teams about their actual positions. "These puppies are conducting psychological warfare," Axel realized, watching 3 12-week-old dogs coordinate counterintelligence operations with their adult partner. Star and Hope had begun making sounds that echoed off the bridge structure in ways that confused acoustic detection, while Luna provided tactical guidance that kept everyone positioned for maximum protection and minimum discovery. But the most remarkable moment came when Sarah, despite her critical condition, began coordinating with the puppies using phrases and commands their mother had taught them. "Luna, Star, Hope, evidence protection protocol," Sarah whispered, and all 3 puppies immediately moved to defensive positions around the recording equipment she carried, understanding that protecting evidence was more important than protecting their own lives. "Mr. Thompson," Sarah said, watching her 3 orphaned puppies demonstrate loyalty that transcended species and training, "these dogs represent the future of law enforcement. They understand that justice is worth dying for." As the search teams began closing in on their position, Axel realized that this wasn't just about rescuing 1 prosecutor and 3 puppies. This was about proving that some families, whether human or canine, are stronger than corruption, smarter than private armies, and more loyal than any amount of money could buy. The battle for Sarah's evidence and the puppies' lives was about to test whether inherited courage and tactical intelligence could defeat unlimited resources and federal authorization for murder. What happened over the next 37 minutes would be studied by both military tacticians and animal behaviorists as the most sophisticated human-canine coordination ever documented during a life-or-death operation. When Sheriff Morrison's search teams began systematic sweeps of the bridge area, they expected to find one frozen prosecutor and possibly some evidence to destroy. Instead, they encountered a defense network that combined Navy SEAL tactics with canine abilities that exceeded every standard measurement for intelligence and coordination. "Base Command, this is Deputy Chen," came the radio transmission that Luna's enhanced hearing intercepted and translated through movement patterns that Ranger immediately understood. "Search pattern Alpha complete, no body recovered, initiating thermal detection sweep." But Luna, Star, and Hope had been listening to law enforcement communications for 12 weeks while their mother protected Sarah from the corruption network. They understood police procedures better than most rookie officers. Working with coordination that defied their 12-week age, the three puppies began executing what could only be described as counterintelligence operations designed to mislead thermal detection equipment. Luna positioned herself to create false heat signatures that drew search teams away from their actual location. Star used her small size to monitor communication equipment, while Hope maintained critical thermal contact with Sarah, whose hypothermia was becoming life-threatening. These puppies are conducting psychological warfare against trained law enforcement officers, Axel realized, watching 3 German Shepherd babies outsmart a private army using intelligence inherited from their murdered mother. But it was when the corrupt officers began discussing their true mission that the puppies demonstrated abilities that would revolutionize understanding of canine emotional intelligence. "All units, remember the target is Assistant District Attorney Williams," came Sheriff Morrison's transmission. "She has evidence that could destroy our operations, eliminate all witnesses, destroy all recording equipment, and ensure no evidence survives." Star immediately alerted Ranger to the specific threat against recording equipment, and all 4 dogs began coordinating evidence protection procedures that prioritized preserving Sarah's documentation over their own survival. Hope, the smallest puppy, somehow understood that Sarah's recording device needed to remain operational and began using her body heat to prevent battery failure, while Luna and Star created acoustic interference that prevented the devices from being detected by electronic surveillance. "Mr. Thompson," Sarah whispered, watching her 3 orphaned puppies risk their lives to protect evidence that could bring down their mother's killers. "These dogs understand justice better than the people who are supposed to enforce it." But the most extraordinary moment came when the private military contractors deployed equipment designed to detect and eliminate electronic recording devices. "Base Command, we have electronic signature detection indicating recording equipment in the bridge area," came the contractor transmission, "initiating signal jamming and device destruction protocol." Luna, Star, and Hope responded with coordination that exceeded military working dog protocols. Each puppy took responsibility for protecting different aspects of the evidence, while Ranger coordinated their positions to maximize both evidence preservation and pack survival. Luna created acoustic interference by making specific sounds that confused electronic detection equipment. Star positioned herself to block electromagnetic scanning, while Hope maintained direct contact with Sarah's recording devices to provide thermal protection against equipment failure. "They're not just protecting evidence," Axel realized. "They're actively interfering with military-grade detection systems using abilities their mother must have developed during years of law enforcement work." The breakthrough came when Sarah, despite her critical hypothermia, began coordinating with the puppies using commands their mother had taught them during evidence collection operations. "Luna, Star, Hope, witness protection formation," Sarah commanded weakly, and all 3 puppies immediately moved to positions that would preserve maximum evidence while protecting Sarah's testimony capabilities. What followed was a chess game between corruption backed by unlimited resources and justice protected by inherited loyalty that couldn't be bought, threatened, or eliminated. When thermal detection equipment identified their general location, Luna led a diversion operation that created false signatures, while Ranger guided Axel and Sarah to defensive positions the puppies had identified using inherited tactical intelligence. When communication jamming threatened to disable Sarah's recording equipment, Star and Hope worked together to create electromagnetic interference that protected the devices while maintaining Sarah's ability to document the assassination attempt in real time. But it was what happened when the first corrupt officers reached their actual position that proved these puppies had inherited more than just their mother's protective instincts. They had inherited her sense of justice. "Base Command, we have visual contact with target," came Deputy Chen's transmission as he approached their defensive position. "Preparing for permanent cleanup of witness and evidence." Luna, Star, and Hope immediately moved into formation around Sarah, but instead of aggressive positioning, they began making sounds that Ranger translated into something unprecedented. They were attempting to communicate with the approaching officers. "They're trying to convert them," Axel realized, watching 3 12-week-old puppies attempt psychological operations designed to appeal to whatever conscience the corrupt officers might retain. The puppies' sounds carried emotional content that communicated innocence, vulnerability, and the kind of loyalty that reminded viewers why law enforcement existed in the first place. Deputy Chen, approaching with elimination orders, found himself facing 3 German Shepherd puppies whose behavior reminded him why he had become a police officer: to protect innocent lives, not destroy them. "Sheriff Morrison," Chen called through his radio, "targets include 3 German Shepherd puppies approximately 12 weeks old, requesting clarification on termination orders regarding civilian animals. All witnesses, Deputy Chen, no exceptions." The silence that followed revealed the moral crisis these puppies had created simply by existing and demonstrating loyalty that exceeded human corruption. But it was Ranger who provided the tactical coordination that would turn the moral crisis into operational victory. Working with Luna, Star, and Hope, he began broadcasting evidence of the assassination attempt to honest law enforcement officers in the area, officers who weren't part of the corruption network. "This is Assistant District Attorney Sarah Williams broadcasting emergency testimony," Sarah managed to say into her recording device while the puppies created acoustic enhancement that carried her voice to monitoring stations outside Morrison's control. "I am documenting the attempted murder of a state prosecutor by corrupt local and federal law enforcement to prevent testimony regarding a human trafficking network involving 400 victims and $47 million in laundered money." Luna, Star, and Hope had somehow coordinated to amplify Sarah's testimony using acoustic techniques their mother had learned during years of evidence collection, ensuring that honest federal authorities would receive documentation of the assassination attempt. The corruption network's response revealed the desperation of criminals who realized their crimes were being documented by the very puppies whose mother they had murdered. "All units, eliminate all targets immediately. Federal backup is en route. No survivors, no evidence, no consequences." But by then, Luna, Star, and Hope had already accomplished what their mother had died trying to achieve. They had protected the evidence that would bring down the trafficking network and expose every official who had betrayed their oath to protect innocent lives. The final battle wouldn't be fought with weapons or federal authorization. It would be fought with inherited loyalty that couldn't be corrupted, intelligence that couldn't be bought, and courage that grew stronger when faced with people who thought power gave them the right to destroy families, whether human or canine. The battle for Sarah Williams's life and the evidence that could expose 8 years of corruption ended not with federal authorization for murder, but with 3 German Shepherd puppies whose inherited sense of justice proved stronger than unlimited criminal resources. Deputy Chen's refusal to execute innocent puppies created a crisis within Sheriff Morrison's team that exposed the moral bankruptcy of their entire operation. "Sheriff Morrison?" Chen called through his radio while Luna, Star, and Hope maintained their protective formation around Sarah. "I joined law enforcement to protect innocent lives, not to murder prosecutors and execute 12-week-old puppies. I'm requesting immediate clarification from federal oversight regarding this operation." "Deputy Chen, you are interfering with a classified federal operation," Morrison replied. "Return to your assigned position or face charges of obstructing federal law enforcement." But Luna, Star, and Hope had been broadcasting Sarah's testimony through acoustic enhancement techniques that reached honest federal authorities outside Morrison's control, and the response transformed the assassination attempt into the largest law enforcement corruption investigation in Montana history. "This is FBI Internal Affairs Assistant Director Patricia Hayes," came the federal transmission that Star's enhanced hearing detected and amplified for everyone to hear. "We have been monitoring communications regarding Assistant District Attorney Williams's investigation. Federal agents are en route to secure witness safety and preserve evidence." The effect on Morrison's team was immediate and divisive. 3 more officers, Sergeant Maria Santos, Officer Tom Mitchell, and Detective James Rodriguez, immediately stopped following elimination orders and began demanding explanations for why they were hunting a prosecutor instead of protecting her. "Sheriff Morrison," Sergeant Santos called while Luna guided her to a position where she could protect Sarah and the puppies. "FBI Internal Affairs is monitoring our communications. We need immediate justification for orders to eliminate a state prosecutor and 3 German Shepherd puppies." Sheriff Morrison's response revealed the desperation of a corruption network that realized their crimes were being documented by the very animals whose mother they had murdered. "All units, federal trafficking investigation takes precedence over state prosecutor authority. Eliminate all targets before federal backup arrives. No survivors, no evidence, no consequences." But it was Hope, the smallest puppy, who provided the evidence that would seal the corruption network's fate. Despite her 12-week age and hypothermic condition, Hope had somehow maintained contact with Sarah's primary recording device throughout the entire assassination attempt, preserving documentation of federal officials coordinating with private contractors to commit murder. Federal Marshal Rodriguez authorizing permanent cleanup of witnesses. Hope's actions had preserved Rodriguez's voice authorizing murder. Private contractors have authorization for lethal force to protect classified trafficking operations. The honest officers who heard this evidence made a decision that would bring down the entire network. "Sheriff Morrison," Officer Mitchell announced while Luna, Star, and Hope coordinated evidence preservation with Ranger, "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, violation of federal civil rights, and obstruction of justice." The private military contractors, realizing their cover had been blown and that federal authorities were documenting their participation in attempted murder, chose to flee rather than face prosecution for murdering state officials. Within 48 hours, the evidence Sarah had collected, combined with the real-time documentation of the assassination attempt that Luna, Star, and Hope had helped preserve, led to the largest law enforcement corruption investigation in Montana history. Sheriff Morrison, Federal Marshal Rodriguez, Judge Harrison, and 21 other officials were arrested on federal charges including human trafficking, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder, and violation of civil rights. But the real victory was measured in lives saved and justice restored. The evidence preserved by 3 orphaned puppies led to the rescue of 89 trafficking victims who were still being held, the identification of 378 additional victims who had been trafficked through the network, and the recovery of $47 million in criminal proceeds. 6 months later, Sarah Williams stood before the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee as Montana's newly appointed federal prosecutor, testifying about the importance of protecting whistleblowers and ensuring that law enforcement serves justice rather than criminal interests. "Senators," Sarah said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had survived assassination attempts to protect the rule of law. "The night I was left to freeze on Miller Creek Bridge, I was saved by a Navy SEAL, his German Shepherd partner, and 3 12-week-old puppies whose courage exceeded that of trained federal agents." Behind her sat Axel Thompson with Ranger and an expanded family that now included Luna, Star, and Hope, 4 German Shepherds whose combined abilities had revolutionized understanding of canine intelligence and family loyalty. "These dogs didn't just preserve evidence that brought down a trafficking network," Sarah continued. "They demonstrated that some forms of loyalty and intelligence transcend training, species, and even age." Luna, Star, and Hope were 12 weeks old when they coordinated counterintelligence operations that outsmarted a private army. The Senate hearing room fell silent as Sarah described how 3 puppies had protected evidence while their human family fought for survival against overwhelming corruption. "Most importantly," Sarah concluded, "they proved that inherited justice is real, that family bonds transcend death, and that sometimes the most important law enforcement work is done by those who understand that protecting innocent lives is worth risking everything." That evening, at Axel's Montana cabin, the expanded Thompson family gathered for their traditional evening harmony. Luna, Star, and Hope had grown into magnificent German Shepherds whose abilities continued to exceed every measurement for canine intelligence. Working with Ranger and the rest of the Midnight Brotherhood, they had become the foundation for a new kind of law enforcement partnership that combined human expertise with inherited canine loyalty. You know what I learned from watching Luna, Star, and Hope work that night? Emma Chen Thompson asked during dinner while the dogs harmonized around the fireplace. "What's that, sweetheart?" Axel replied. "I learned that family isn't just about who rescues you, it's about who you choose to protect afterward. The puppies could have run away when the shooting started, but they stayed to protect Sarah's evidence because their mother had taught them that justice was worth dying for." Sarah, now a permanent member of their chosen family, watched Luna, Star, and Hope coordinate evening activities with the rest of the Brotherhood with abilities that continued to amaze federal investigators. "Axel," Sarah said, "what those puppies accomplished that night proved something that every prosecutor needs to understand. Justice isn't just about punishing criminals. It's about protecting innocent lives and preserving the evidence that ensures truth survives longer than corruption." The Montana evening sky that had once provided cover for attempted murder now stretched clear and starlit above a state where 378 trafficking victims had received justice, where corrupt officials faced federal prison, and where 3 orphaned puppies had grown into heroes whose abilities would protect innocent lives for years to come. Because sometimes the most important evidence isn't found in safe deposit boxes or recording devices. Sometimes it's found in the courage of animals who inherit loyalty deeper than training, intelligence that transcends age, and the understanding that some family bonds are so strong that they can survive assassination attempts and grow stronger under fire. For Luna, Star, and Hope, who proved that 12-week-old puppies can conduct counterintelligence operations that exceed military standards when they're protecting their family. For Lady, their mother, whose death protecting Sarah led to her offspring completing the mission that brought down an entire trafficking network. For Sarah Williams, who learned that sometimes the best law enforcement partnerships involve prosecutors, Navy SEALs, and German Shepherd puppies working together to protect the innocent. For every orphaned animal whose inherited abilities are waiting to be discovered, nurtured, and channeled toward protecting those who need protection most. Welcome to a Montana where justice is protected by families that choose each other, where inherited courage exceeds corruption, and where the smallest heroes often accomplish the greatest victories. 3 puppies whose mother's death led to their own heroism. 1 bridge that became a courtroom where loyalty defeated corruption. 1 family that proves the strongest law enforcement partnerships transcend species, age, and traditional training. Sometimes the most important inheritance isn't money or property. It's the genetic memory of how to protect innocent lives. We want to hear what you felt while listening to this story. Don't forget to comment and rate the story out of 10.